Well, earlier, the ambassador and head of the Palestinian mission to the UK, Dr. Hussam Zomlot, gave the BBC his take on the ruling.
I think the court was clear, issuing a ruling for all states, including Israel, to abide by the following things: that Israel has to stop immediately killing Palestinians. It's as simple as that. That it has to allow for humanitarian aid to enter unhindered. That it must not tamper with any evidence. You see why it's on trial. That it has to report back in 1 month. And this puts a serious pressure, not only on Israel as the state committing the genocide, but on third parties worldwide, because now we will be watching and following and working with any third party that is complicit in the genocide.
Of course, it's important to clarify there on the Palestinian ambassador's remarks that the court ruling does not determine whether Israel's actions to date constitute genocide. Well, to talk some more about this, let's speak to the former Israeli ambassador to the US, Michael Oren, who joins us. Michael Oren, thanks indeed for joining us on BBC News. In relation to the ruling from the ICJ, what is Israel going to do now to put these legally binding measures in place?
Good to be with you, Katrina. I'm listening to this report now for several minutes, and I haven't heard one word, rather crucial word from Israel's perspective, which would be the word Hamas. The Hamas is using the Palestinian people as a human shield. It's using Palestinian cities as urban shields, but beneath the cities are hundreds and hundreds of miles of tunnels going hundreds of feet deep. And Israel's done its best to urge Palestinians to move away from these areas, but it's virtually impossible because Hamas actually has an interest in having a high level of civilian casualties so that this court case could proceed. From Israel's perspective, this is a surreal situation. This is a court case based on a UN charter that was formulated in the aftermath of the Holocaust to prevent a second Holocaust. So here you have Israel being accused of genocide after being attacked by an organization which is openly and proudly genocidal in an attempted genocide. To think of that from us, it's totally surreal. In the actual battlefield, nothing's going to change, Karina. This is a war of national survival for Israel and the Jewish people. We will continue, irrespective of what this court says. And let's be frank, it's not really a court. These judges are appointed by governments. These are positions of governments of the UN. And votes in the UN are always stacked against Israel.
Just to jump in there, Michael Oren, for one moment. Just to clarify what you've said there, you think the Israeli approach will continue as is, that these legally binding orders will be ignored, which is what you've just said there. Now, Israel has been ordered to report back within 30 days as to what changes it's made to its approach. Is it going to ignore that order as well?
Well, let's be careful. Let's be very clear from my side. I'm not a spokesman for the Israeli government. I'm a citizen of the state of Israel. And I will tell you, as a citizen of the state of Israel, no one's going to pay any attention to this. We're fighting a war of national survival, and we'll continue to fight in order to ensure our survival and the defeat of Hamas. That's period. The government will have to decide whether to report or not to report, or to continue to recognize the court and this truly surreal proceedings. Many Israelis think we shouldn't have appeared there at all, and even made a case. We did. Frankly, I was surprised that we were actually exonerated of the charge of genocide because the UN is so stacked against Israel.
Well, it didn't exonerate Israel on any charge like that. It just didn't make a ruling on that. These are interim measures pending a broader hearing. And it is saying that Israel has to take these actions because the people of Palestine are at risk of genocide given what the Israeli forces have done so far. So just to clarify that point.
Clarification accepted, but it did not call for a ceasefire.
No, it didn't. You're correct. But the other point, so we have the IDF approach on one hand, which it made those rulings on that you think will be ignored. But the other point it made was that it has ordered the state of Israel to take immediate and effective measures to enable the provision of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance to address the adverse conditions of life faced by Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Do you think Israel will take action on that point?
I think Israel has been taking action on that point.
But not sufficient. Sorry for jumping in there, Michael, because we don't have much time. For the court to make this ruling, for everything we've heard from the UN Secretary General, from NGOs operating in the area, people are at risk of famine there. Every child under 5 is at risk of malnutrition. A quarter of people don't have enough food to eat. 2 million people have been displaced. I don't think you can argue that the humanitarian situation there isn't dire and needs to be improved.
I wasn't arguing that at all. I'm thinking that Israel's taken the measures. The UN has proved fabulously inefficient in distributing this aid, and Hamas robs it when it gets in there. It's very interesting. Again, that word Hamas hasn't appeared anywhere in this report. It would be very good if the International Court of Justice and the BBC would simply say, if Hamas were to give up the war, give up the hostages, the war ends immediately, and Palestinian suffering ends immediately. All I've heard from the moment this broadcast began is onus on Israel, onus on Israel. The people of Israel are going to do whatever we have to defend ourselves. I don't care what the ICJ says or the BBC.
Well, with respect, Michael Oren, we're talking about Israel here. This ruling relates to Israel. It does not relate to Hamas, which is why we're asking about Israel's actions at this point. And on the issue of aid, the Israeli official said this week that on one day 260 aid trucks had been permitted in, the largest number of any day since October 7th. But prior to October 7th, 500 aid trucks a day entered. So there's a discrepancy there between what is needed and what is being delivered.
I think you're absolutely right. But again, our military forces say, and I believe them, that they provided every possible provision and ability to get that aid in. It is being blocked by inefficiency on the part of the UN and simply thievery and thuggery on the part of Hamas. They steal from their own people. Why not? They create a situation where their own people get killed. There are 450 miles of tunnels beneath Gaza, Katrina. Have they let one Palestinian into any of those tunnels to protect them? Absolutely not. And it's very good that the ICJ and the BBC want to talk about Israel as if the Hamas doesn't exist. But of course, we can't afford to do that.
That's not true. We do talk plenty about Hamas here on the BBC. And as I say, the ruling today was related to Israel and Israel's actions. But we're out of time. We'll have to leave it there. Former Israeli ambassador to the US, Michael Oren, thank you very much for joining us.